It's easier if he turns his toes out. Yeah.
So he spreads his feet apart really, really wide, and then he still can't get to parallel, right? But he can get lower. Am I correct?
Good morning. Happy Monday. I have no coffee in hand, and it is perfect. All right. Coming off a very solid weekend. Saw some live music on Saturday. Had a big Zoom call with the intensive people on Sunday. Was a great call. Still a little high from that, so kind of excited. So let's dig into today's Q&A. This is with Victor. And so Victor presented 2 case studies in his consultation call. We went off of a chessboard, off the first one, which was a basketball player, end game narrow ISA, and then somebody with a wide ISA with the lumbar fusion. So we had a lot of things to consider. For those of you that are interested in understanding a little bit more about the endgame representations, there are videos on the YouTube channel. So go and subscribe to that and get that information so you have that understanding if there's any confusion with this Q&A. If you would like to participate in a 15-minute consultation yourself, please go to askbillhartman@gmail.com, askbillhartman@gmail.com, and we can set up a 15-minute consultation from there. Just put 15-minute consultation in the subject line so I don't delete it. We will arrange that at our mutual convenience. Everybody have an outstanding Monday. Looking forward to a great week, and I'll see you tomorrow.
And there you go. We are now being recorded. Clock has started. Victor, what is your question?
All right, so I think it'd just be easier. I do have 2 chessboards, well, a chessboard and a half. The full one is on this post-it note. I don't know if you can see clearly or not.
High tech. Okay, hang on. What am I looking at? What measures am I looking at?
These are hip range of motion.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Got it.
And the trouble is, so he's a basketball player, trouble with getting into an athletic position with his feet facing forward. It's easier if he turns his toes out. Yeah.
So he spreads his feet apart really, really wide, and then he still can't get to parallel, right? But he can get lower. Am I correct?
He can't even get to, like, I wouldn't even say parallel. It's
I know. Okay.
30-degree deflection. And
so
then
here's
moving
what you're looking at.
is also a problem.
Yeah, here's what you're looking at. End game narrow. Okay, end game narrow. So he's got AP compression, and he's pushed forward first, and then he went over to his right side a little bit, which is why you got the abduction measures that you got. Okay, so here's what you got to do. You got to move him to the left. Okay, and then move him backwards.
Okay.
Because if you try to move him straight backwards, he's just going to make he's going to orient everything together. Okay. Chances are, is he really tall?
Yeah, it's pretty tall.
Okay.
Somewhere around 6 feet.
Oh, that's not tall. That's not tall.
It's pretty tall.
Well, it's taller than me. So, but it's not really tall. Like when we talk about like the 6'9", 6'10" guys.
Gotcha. Yeah, not that tall.
They have some other center of gravity issues, but so this guy probably won't do too badly, but chances are he's still going to orient to try to get depth, just because of his physical structure and then his bias towards this type of a behavior, because this is a performance-related behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say the other thing I was considering was the rate of connective tissue loading too, like as he's moving. Like it's one thing to have him breathe and in a static position, all these things, but as soon as he's moving quickly, it obviously increases stiffness, like you mentioned multiple times. So
yes. So yes, because he's got to be bouncy and he's got to be quick, right? And so that's how you use those connective tissues to your advantage. So a lot of times here's one of the mistakes I think that people make when they're dealing with athletes and performance is they're always comparing to the averages, right? So average range of motion. So there's not normal range of motion, there are average ranges of motion, right? And if I want an athlete to perform well, being average usually isn't the right answer, because average people don't get to play sports at high levels. Okay. It's the above average people that have special qualities about them that get to do these things. So just because your guy can't do like a hip width deep squat or something like that doesn't mean there's something wrong with him. It just means that the performance related strategies that he uses reduces relative movement compared to the average, which is expected under many circumstances. There might be some times where we want to see a whole lot more range of motion out of him, like when he's in some sort of recovery phase or he's trying to recoup from a higher level performance, and we need to reduce some of the muscle activity, promote recoveries and things like that. But in general, you got a guy that's probably tuned up for performance related activities, right? So you can't rely on the averages.
Yeah. And the only way to know, I know you mentioned this before, like if you give somebody like that who uses compressive strategies for performance benefit, if you give somebody too much range of motion, there's only one, I would imagine the only way to find out if it's too much for that person is to give them a range of motion, retest whatever you're testing, and then go there.
Yeah, that's just part of the training process. Let me give you, for instance, so I got sent a message yesterday from one of my buddies that's working with a really high level pitcher that's coming off of a surgery. And we had a comparative video from before the surgery when he was throwing at a certain velocity, and another one where he was throwing at a different it's actually a lower velocity coming off of his surgery. When you look at the relative movement that's available during the two videos, he's got less relative motion available to him when he's throwing faster, right? Okay. He looks better. He looks more comfortable in the new video, but he's not throwing as hard. And so then the question mark is like, okay, what do we need to give this guy? What do we need to take away? And so this is just part of the process. So, you know, with baseball, it's pretty simple at times, where you can just use velocity as one of your KPIs. And then you say, well, how do we get this guy back up to his previous level of velocity? It's like, well, we might have to change something because he's a little different now, you know, because the constraints have changed to some degree, right? Because of a surgery, right? But this guy's, you know, the numbers that you threw up are not unusual when you see somebody that's dealing with a performance related strategy, right? But again, it's like my greatest concern with this is that we don't compare them to the average, because we don't want average. We want something else in most cases. Doesn't mean that in every case. You know, there might be somebody that's cool as a cucumber and can, you know, calm his system down anytime he wants. You know, I had a high level soccer player in the purple room here once, and he was so cool and chilled out, I thought he was going to fall asleep. You know, because
I've had like one or two patients like that. Like during treatment, I'm like, "Are you gonna fall asleep on the table here?"
Yeah, exactly.
No nervous system arousal, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Okay, so move him left and then back, and because so you got to think about this from a structural standpoint. So when you see this end game representation, and you can see it in the numbers, right? You can see that he got pushed forward first. So he's on a very, very flat turn, and then he just kept going forward. Yeah. He hit an anterior constraint where he couldn't go forward anymore. So he had to slide over top of his right leg. So that's the direction that he went. So it went boom, boom. Gotcha. So you got to reverse gears. You go boom, boom. Okay. Let's say if I took him straight back without taking him left, would that produce something like a right turn then?
No. So I'm sitting on a rolling stool, okay, that pivots. So if you try to take him straight back, right, all you're going to do is get this, right?
So get a left.
So you don't get relative motion. You just get an orientation out of it.
Gotcha. Okay.
You see it?
Yeah.
Because he's pushed forward. He's ready to pivot. Like he could pivot around his right leg, right? But it's like you got a stick in the ground, and then it's just a rotation around that stick. It's like what you want if you're trying to recapture the relative motions is I got to bring him back to. It's like so he's off center, so he's over to the right. Bring him back, and now you can bring him straight back, and then you're capturing the relative motions. You see it? So you're probably looking because of the amount of motion that he does have available to him. You're probably looking at some sort of like a short staggered stance, kind of an activity first, kind of a thing.
Okay.
Depending on what he can recapture on his feet, you might have to take him to the ground and like an armbar series or something like that. Depending how far back you need to go, then it becomes a cross connect or something like that. It's like starting him at the high level. He's a performer. If he's not broken, then I would treat him like an athlete first and see what you can recapture that way. And then just regress as much as you need to capture what you think you need to recapture.
Okay. And I guess I want clarification on bringing him left. In my head, I have, is that in the imaginary frontal plane? Is this a turn to the left?
It's not a turn because his center of gravity went forward and to the right. So you got to bring the center of gravity back to the left.
Okay.
He's pushing right to left. It could be something as simple as a left crossover step with a sled drag.
Gotcha.
That might be enough to do it.
Okay.
You see what I'm getting at? It's like you just got to push him that way, and then he'll start to make his turn. And the turn is where the relative motion is. But you first have to get him into a place where he can actually capture relative motion. Because right now you've got an AP compression and you've got a pretty hard push to the right. It's like just reverse engineer.
Gotcha. Okay. I appreciate that one. Next. This is not a chessboard. I'm going to give you like general qualities of this person. I think I've seen videos of you provide solutions in those scenarios. So 70-year-old male, wide ISA.
Wait, 70? 70?
Yes.
Okay.
Different person, not the basketball player.
I didn't figure.
70-year-old male, wide ISA. So he has pain around both like sacral ala, like on the lateral aspect of both, worse on the left, lumbar fusion L3 to L5, absolutely zero hip interrotation, hip flexion stopped at like maybe 80 degrees, SLR was at like 45, not much abduction. Hip ER on both sides actually wasn't too bad. If I remember correctly, like between 60 and 70, but just like overall stiff and just pretty crippling pain in the sacrum there. And I imagine that was just kind of his last compressive strategy in your lens.
Yeah, he's got another one. He's got another one up in the thorax, most likely. So here's what you're dealing with. So when you measure hip ER, where do you think that's coming from?
The entire pelvis rolling.
Yeah. So they fused his lumbar spine. So you have no compensatory strategy there, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you're measuring hip ER, like, first of all, he's a wide ISA. So right away you're thinking I should have a deficit in hip ER. He doesn't have a deficit in hip ER, which means that you've got a lot of stuff that's moving together. Okay. So you've got a compressive strategy in the pelvis. The pelvis is moving as a single unit. So take the ilia, jam them together, lock the sacrum into place, and then lock the lumbar spine into place.
Just moving as a big
Where's
block.
the next space? Where's the next space above the lumbar spine where you got movement?
Thorax, but
T11, 12.
Yeah.
Right. So he's probably rotating there. When you're measuring hip ER, right? So you're right. It's like all he's got is a sacrum that's just getting compressed between the two ilia at this point, right? So the pressure just builds, right?
Mm-hmm.
He gets pushed forward, right? So now you got to start thinking, it's like, okay, where can I make space? Can't use lumbar spine compensatory strategies. not moving the sacrum at all, right? So you're going to have to create some form of AP expansion, right? So he's a side liar. He's going to be a guy that you can use a lot of manual therapy on to get the rib cage to move, to get the pelvis to move.
Yeah, I've been having, so the treatment I've been doing with him so far, side lying, just taking the foam roller between the thighs and just trying to roll the femurs back and forth. He's at 90 degrees of hip flexion, which probably, as we were talking, is obviously is compensatory if he's in a range of motion.
As you're shifting, if he's able to actually roll through the pelvis, you're rolling him on a helical angle. You're okay. It's just that you're starting him from midline. So you're starting him at middle P, and then you're rolling him in and out. So he's actually doing this as he shifts. Okay. So you're probably okay there. The problem that you're going to run into, though, is that you don't have enough pressure laterally to create the anterior expansion, right? So you're going to expand the available turn. It's just not going to be big enough. So you've got to go up into the thorax. You've got a thorax that's not moving either. Okay, you've heard me talk about dynamic ISAs, right?
Once or twice.
Okay. So you need a dynamic ISA to because if he's not turning up here, you could spend all day on his side and you're not going to get anything. Right? You're going to have to teach him to move his rib cage, right? Because he's got to reorient the helical angles to make a turn. And if he can't do that, he's not doing it through the pelvis and he's not going to do it through the thorax. And again, he's just locked into one piece. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
So I had him
dude, I hate to say this.
All right.
You're out of time. It's okay. It's all right. We're out of time. We can pick this up later.